Greetings. Today we're going to be talking about Stockholm Syndrome. What is Stockholm Syndrome and how does it affect us in our daily lives? So, Stockholm Syndrome is when someone is forced to spend a lot of time in a toxic or negative situation, causing them to develop a sense of comfort or tolerance in the unfortunate circumstance, right? So the comfort or tolerance that you develop in a toxic environment can end up building up into positive emotions towards that toxic or negative environment, right? So, for example, you find yourself in a situation where you're oppressed and you're not happy, right? But you learn to live with that tension, right? And end up actually being sort of like attached to that tension because it's all you know. And for many other reasons that we'll discuss in detail later, right? So, Stockholm Syndrome is prevalent in situations such as child abuse, coach athlete abuse, romantic marriages or relationships abuse, work related abuse, kidnapper hostage situations, and more, right? So, all these relationships that I've just described are close relationships between two people, right? They are relationships which demand commitment, right? You have to be committed. For example, marriage, right? It's a binding agreement between two people, right? So when you're bound to someone, or when you're, I do not want to use the word stuck because it's not the right word, but let's just stick with bound. If you're bound to someone, right, in agreement, right, you have to spend a lot of time with them, right? So for the sake of trying to make it work, you may settle for less, or you may settle for things that are not justified, right? And in other situations, such as a parent and child relationship, they're your parent. You're sort of like bound to them. We're not going to use stuck. You're bound to them because they are the person that gave you life and you are growing up in their household. So, Stockholm Syndrome is prevalent in situations where people are bound to each other. For example, even at work, you sign a contract. So that means that you're bound to that place and to the people that you're working with for a long time. So in these situations, you may face some negativity or some toxic indicators or toxic treatment that you receive from other people. But because you feel bound to that situation, you may end up settling for that. And once you settle for that, that sense of tolerance and that sense of comfort can end up developing into even maybe positive emotions, right? Such as gratitude, such as even some may term it love, or other emotions like that, right? So this is what Stockholm Syndrome is, right? So this is just an introductory statement of what Stockholm Syndrome is, right? So people with Stockholm Syndrome develop a psychological connection with people who treat them badly, right? So it's also psychological, right? Why? Because they don't see a way out of the situation that they're in, or because they feel obligated and tied to that situation, right? So we're talking about Stockholm Syndrome, right? So Stockholm Syndrome also indicates isolation or lack of exposure. If a person is isolated, they don't have access to better care, so they end up settling for less, or they end up embracing the what they have, right? And what they have is not always sweet. Sometimes it can be very sour, and even detrimental in some cases. So when people lack exposure, they are unaware of the existence of better care. So they think that what they have in the present moment is all there is, right? When in reality, they might be better out there, better situations, better opportunities, better ways of living out there. But because you don't know, because you're unaware, because you lack exposure, you end up just settling for what's less and actually loving, what's not right. Right. So Stockholm Syndrome has been deemed a coping mechanism used by victims to deal with traumatic experiences. In 1973, there was a bank robbery in Stockholm Syndrome where some bank employees, right, working in that bank were held hostage by the robbers, right? So what happened after that? It was then observed that after spending 6 days with the robbers, the employees became sympathetic with the people that held them against their will. And when the employees were released and the bank robbers were arrested, right, it was seen that some of the hostages refused to testify against the robbers. And some of them even raised money to try to defend the robbers. So this just shows you that after spending 6 days with someone who held you against your will, putting a gun to your head, you know, installing all that fear, within your system, right? But after 6 days, you're getting to know them a little bit. You're in the same place with them. They're giving you a little bit of food, a little bit of water, and then you end up, just you know getting on their side. You end up getting on their side, and you end up defending them, or even developing a strong positive emotion towards them, right? So it was theorized that the Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological trait that we have developed as humans over the years, passed down from our ancestors. Because in early civilizations, right, there was always the risk of being captured or killed by another social group, right? So how do you handle this, right? So to increase your chances of survival, right, people who ended up bonding with their with the people that invade them, with the people that capture them against their will, just to try to get them on their good side. So these people are stealing from you. These people are burning down your houses, and they're taking your wives and children, right? But they're taking your wife, your children, or they're killing your husband, right? So, but because you want to survive, you end up just saying, okay, cool, cool, cool. Let me treat them right. Let me try to get them on. Let me try to get on their good side so that they can be more, tolerant on me, and so that I can survive. So this is something that we faced as a human race throughout the years. So some psychiatrists theorize that this is where it came from, right? Another theory is that when someone violent or intense, or someone who is highly negative, suddenly adjusts to show kindness, they are shown compassion by the people who are oppressed, and also by working with or not fighting against an abuser, victims may also secure safety. So if you don't resist, someone is holding a gun against you, or someone has something against you, right? They can destroy you, they can fire you, or other stuff like that. So by trying to just play it cool with them, it may increase your chances of safety, right? And when not harmed by an abuser, a victim may end up feeling grateful. This person could have killed me, but they didn't. So you end up feeling grateful, even though they're wrong in the first place, right? So how do you manage Stockholm Syndrome? Counseling, talk therapy, those are the main ways to manage or treat Stockholm Syndrome. Talking to someone about it, and venting, So this helps you to understand your experience, like how sympathetic behavior towards your abusers is just a survival skill. Because some people may take it for what it's not, instead of taking it for what it is, and also learn how you can move on. So counseling and talking really helps, right? So this is the end of our discussion on Stockholm Syndrome, and our reference is an article on Stockholm Syndrome from clevelandclinic.com. Thank you for your time.